Welcome into this Thursday edition of Push in the Pile, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. Mike Renner, JP Acosta, going to be rolling through all the week 16. 3 weeks left in the regular season here, JP. 16 games on today's slate, but all season long up to the playoffs. Cash App is sponsoring our Locks segment. We'll track how we're doing each episode with the winner being presented with our Cash App Locks trophy at the end of the season. Last week was a rough one for the fellas. 3-3 led the way. JP with his 7 picks goes 2-5. Kyle 1-2, taking up the rear at 39% this season. You got to be shooting more shots again today, JP?
I'm not going to be shooting quite the volume. It's not going to be 7 today.
Not going to be Jamal Crawford. It's going to be a little more reserved.
We're controlling. We're taking efficient shots with this one.
Yeah, efficiency is the name of the game. At this point in the season, we need what we can get. We're going to get to all the games, but first I want to just recap a little bit of the playoff picture and how we stand right now. And I had a dumb thought this morning that I want to hear your take on. So right now the AFC is the Broncos have the 1 seed, Patriots, Jags, Steelers are your 2, 3, 4 division leaders, and then your wild cards are the Chargers, Bills, Texans, with obviously the Colts and Ravens being still in the hunt. In the NFC, we have the Rams as the 1 seed right now at 11-3, Bears, Eagles, Bucks are your 2, 3, 4, and then Seahawks, 49ers, Packers are your current wild cards, with obviously the Lions still very much in contention at 8-6, Panthers at 7-7 in contention for the NFC South. And my dumb idea was this. Is it better to be the number 2 seed or the number 5 seed, the top wild card? And this applies probably more to the Patriots and Bills as we go forward, because whoever probably doesn't get that AFC East crown is likely to be either the 5 or 6, but could be the 5 seed. And is it better off? Is the team who gets the 5 seed actually better off than the team that gets the 2 seed, considering the 5 seed in either division will be playing either the AFC North winner or the NFC South winner?
Honestly, I kind of think it might be better to have the 5, especially when you think about who is that 4 seed. I mean, if you're the Bills, you're looking at playing the Steelers and thinking like, yeah, we can beat these guys easily. And it's even though it's on the road, I think the biggest thing that the 2 seed has over the 5 is the fact that you're playing a game at home. But considering who you're playing against, like if you're the Bears and you're the 2 seed, you have that game at home, but you're also playing the Packers again if the season ended today. That's not a great thing. The third time games are always the games that are really frustrating because something's got to give at that point. And then if you're the Patriots, you have to play the Texans at home, which is probably the worst matchup for the Patriots when it comes to just like across the board. I just don't think that's a great matchup for them. So I think it would be better to have the 5, but it's also a pretty cool testament to how fun the playoffs are going to be, because every team is I'd say they're all equally balanced in terms of strengths and flaws.
I am so interested in a week 18 scenario that sees the Bills actively trying to lose to the New York Jets to secure the 5 seed. But there is something to the home field advantage. Then the next week, obviously, if you win as the 2 seed, you get to the next round. But like, everyone would rather play the Steelers right now than the Texans. Everyone. So it's like, yeah, what good's home field advantage if you ain't winning that first game? So it will be very interesting to see going forward. Let's get into the games, though. And we'll start with the Saturday games. We're on to the Saturday portion of the NFL season that we'll have the next couple weeks here. Packers at Bears. Packers still favorites despite no Zach Tom, no Mike Parsons, obviously. Christian Watson could go. On the flip side, Rome Odunze and Luther Burden did not practice on Wednesday. We'll see if those guys are healthy come Saturday. The over-under in this one is 46.5. And what's at stake here? Obviously, NFC North. There's not going to be a tiebreaker unless the Bears have a tie, again, because of that tie that the Packers had early on in the season with the Cowboys. But this will swing the balance of the NFC North more likely than not. The Packers, if they win, 99% chance of making the playoffs, 80% chance with a loss. Bears, 95% chance of making the playoffs with a win, but that drops down a lot, 62% with a loss.
I think this game is going to be really contingent on what Jeff Hafley's plan without Micah Parsons is going to be. I wrote about it yesterday for CBS Sports on what could the defense look like now without their pass rusher, who really helps the entire defense sort of speed up the process for the quarterback. And I think the biggest key to this is going to be Edgerrin Cooper and Quay Walker, because they need that speed on defense, especially in the pass rush department, because they don't have anybody fast on the defensive line. Devontae Wyatt also out. That means you're hoping on Rashawn Gary, Lucas Van Ness, you're hoping Colby Wooden can all win with speed and quickness, which is something they don't really do. And I think last season they did a lot of getting Edgerrin Cooper and Quay Walker into the box as blitzers. They didn't have to as much the early parts of this season with Micah Parsons, but when Micah Parsons is off the field, their blitz rate goes to 26.6%. That's way up from 20.7 with Parsons on the field. So I do think they're going to try and blitz more, but I wonder if they just have the overall speed to keep up with Caleb Williams in this passing game that is growing every single week.
I would push back on one thing. I don't think speed's quite the right term, because Lucas Van Ness and Rashawn Gary ran 4.58 40s coming out. It's more agility. They don't have guys who can move laterally. Rashawn Gary, Lucas Van Ness are very much linear football players. That's why, in a straight line, they can be fast. If you ask them to turn or change directions, that's when things break down. And that's where Caleb Williams just feasts. It's like, hey, if you can't mirror a guy like that, if you can't get to balance, change directions, play fluidly in space, he's just going to have all day there in the pocket. Whereas Edgerrin Cooper, Quay Walker are two guys that have that ability. They're like, hey, they're one-on-one with Caleb Williams. It's not just going to end in a clown show. So I agree. I do wonder what their plan is going to be with those linebackers, how much you see them utilize as blitzers, because before you didn't really have to, right? Like it wasn't a necessity, but it feels like it's going to be a necessity here in this one. But then you could leave yourself exposed in the running game. And that's obviously where the Bears have made their hay. They are, last time around, 138 rushing yards. They are second in the NFL this season in rushing yards per game. It is a dominant rushing attack that I expect to be the difference in this football game, is what the Bears do on the ground. The Packers can have answers and shut that down. They have a chance of winning. But if it looks like the second half of last 2 weeks ago, I just don't think the Packers end up winning that game.
I actually think the difference in this one is going to be Caleb Williams hitting the explosives. Like we saw in that quarterback matchup graphic, Caleb Williams went 16 of 35 in the first game. And I think he started to turn it on as the game kept going. Like we said, if there was an extra quarter, maybe the Bears win that game. But I do think without Micah Parsons, without the threat of speeding up the process for Williams, I think there's going to be more opportunities to hit explosives on the outside edges. I think there's going to be more opportunities to hit those explosives over the middle of the field. I think it's going to be potentially a big game for Luther Burden, especially if Rome Odunze doesn't play. He has been really good over the last few weeks. I think his ability to create separation and then build yards after the catch off of that he's really starting to become the guy that we thought he was going to be coming out of Missouri. And I think that's super cool, and it adds another layer to this offense. So I actually think if Caleb Williams can just hit a couple more explosives to sort of bank on that threat of the passing game after hitting everybody with the run game, I think the Bears are in a really good spot.
Packers have been good, though, at limiting at least downfield passing. All season long, only 16 completions on 20-plus air yard targets. And like I said off the top, Luther Burden didn't practice Wednesday with an ankle injury. Rome Odunze didn't practice yesterday. If both of those guys are out, because again, obviously it's a shorter week, not the full short week to Thursday, but shorter week to Saturday. That to me is, I don't see the only way the Packers have a chance. Obviously they're still favored in this game, but if both those guys play, I will be picking the Bears in this one.
Yeah, I think the Bears win. I do wonder defensively, do they play as much man coverage as they did last time? Because Jordan Love shredded their man coverage, shredded their blitzing whenever they blitzed, because they couldn't get pass rush. But without Zach Tom, potentially without Christian Watson, depending on if he plays or not, do you just sit back in zone and say, look, there's going to have to be a Montez Sweat game. There's going to have to be why they paid and traded for Montez Sweat for moments like this. So I think the Bears can win. I think the Bears will win. I just wonder, does Dennis Allen sort of turn down the aggression knowing that Jordan Love has beaten the blitz and man coverage at will this season?
Yeah. Yeah, I do think it's going to be high scoring, though. I think over 46.5 is the other side I like in this one. All right, let's take a quick break. After that, we have a lot more games to get to.
You can't count on accurate expiration dates.
That is a rookie mistake.
Or the kindness of strangers. But thanks to CBS Sports, you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus.
Jaguars at Broncos. Broncos 3-point favorites. 46.5 points is the over-under. What's the confidence level at here, JP, heading into Denver?
I would say I'm at, if a scale of 1 to 10, 1 is they're going to get blown out and look embarrassing, versus 10, they're going to win this game and embarrass the Broncos in Denver. I would say about a 5. I think they can win this game, but I think if they just look competitive, if this is a close game and they're able to keep up with Denver, especially given what they have on defense and where the Jaguars have struggled this season in the passing game, which is they've just been overwhelmed with power up front. I think if they can mitigate some of that and keep this game competitive, I'll come out with a lot more confidence.
Broncos, I will be honest, kind of look like a house right now. I do think they are probably, as we stand right now, the best team in the AFC, especially just one, they are right up there with the Texans for the best defense in the AFC, but also like Bo Nix actually since that Raiders game where people wanted him benched and he was terrible admittedly in that game. 2 picks, was just ugly. He's 6th in the NFL in EPA per dropback since 0.258. He has been awesome last week as well. And it's like, if you don't catch the Bo Nix, easy pick that he throws once a game, if you don't catch that, he's probably going to like make you pay for it. And he did just that last week. And so I do think that's going to be what decides this one, is can the Jaguars get the 1 or 2 plays that he's going to offer them up as a defense? Can they make them and make the Broncos offense pay? If not, I think the Broncos roll in this one.
I think the biggest thing in this game, because Anthony Campanelli does come from Green Bay and comes from a scheme, and they play very similarly to Jeff Hafley and Green Bay. Although the biggest difference is where Jeff Hafley plays a lot of non-traditional Tampa 2s, a lot of Tampa 2 in Green Bay. The Jaguars play quarter half. They play a lot of cover 6. And I think the biggest thing for this game is Bo Nix has been aggressive throwing downfield. He's taking all the opportunities and making all the tight window throws downfield that we said, like, oh, that's NFL open. He should make that throw instead of taking the check down. I think that's the biggest difference between, we're looking at the first Raiders game where he's missing Evan Ingram wide open and he's turning down plays open in the backfield and taking sacks, versus the game against the Packers where he's using his legs, he's scrambling, he's attacking downfield. I actually think both Nix and Trevor Lawrence's legs are going to be the biggest difference in this game, because they can mitigate some of the flaws in the offense. Where I do think that Bo Nix will sometimes miss stuff with his eyes, he has the ability with his legs to go and recreate those windows. And I think Trevor Lawrence, as the season has gone on, Liam Cohen has started to embrace the dual threat ability of Trevor Lawrence. I mean, he's not a standstill like pocket passer. Dude's big, he can move. They'll run like against the Jets, they ran like stick draw, like an RPO where they had like I think it was like slot fade where they had it was empty with 3 receivers to one side, 2 to the other. And he checks the slot fade, decides he doesn't want it, and runs a QB draw. I think that's the easy stuff that they're incorporating into this offense to make defenses respect his legs. But then you're thinking just over the middle. They have been hammering teams as of late. And I think that's part of the Jacoby Myers trade, is they've just become one of the best teams throwing over the middle of the field. I wonder how Denver sort of slows that down. Is this going to be a very you have to have Hufanga being aggressive coming off the roof, and if you have him being aggressive off the roof, then you're leaving yourself open to a potential Brian Thomas Jr. explosive. I think whichever team hits more explosives in this game, I think they'll have a chance to win.
First off, love stick draw. I feel like in college that's just like the easiest money play of anything. It seemingly always works. Two, for the Jaguars, has Cole Van Lanen Wally pipped Walker Little? Has he taken his job there on the left side?
I mean, he has played very well as of late, especially with Walker Little out of the lineup. But he has played the Jets. He's played the Colts without DeForest Buckner. He's played the Titans. Like, I'm not saying that he's gotten a real easy way go about it, because you got to play NFL players every week. But those aren't exactly really fearsome pass rush groups right now. I think this is going to be the true test of, can he withstand legit playoff caliber pass rush. Although I do think on the flip side, Josh Hines-Allen versus Garrett Bowles might be the best matchup of the week. I think both those guys, considering both of their stories with being franchise cornerstones for such a long time, being on so many bad teams. Josh Hines-Allen just set the franchise record in sacks. Garrett Bowles has never been a Pro Bowler, which I thought was crazy when I first read the stat that Bowles has never been a Pro Bowler, and this might be his first year that he does it. I think that matchup is going to be so cool because they both are powerful. Josh Hines-Allen can get to that outside corner, but I do think, how do you pass rush a guy like Bo Nix? And Liam Cohen has said that his scrambling changes the defensive game plan. So I wonder how they address sort of the scrambles. They do a lot of loops and stunts to where if Nix tries to scramble out to his right, you have somebody looping late. I'm very curious in how this game plan is going to go.
Yeah, Bowles' career arc has been interesting because he wasn't, so he was in the same draft as Ryan Ramczyk, who's retired. And it is actually interesting because Bowles, one of the, I would say knocks, but a big talking point around him coming out was he was 25 as a rookie. He was old. And so it's career length at that point. Well, he outlasted the other guy who wasn't 25. But for the first probably 6 years of their career, it was clear that Ramczyk was the better tackle. He was at one point in time maybe the best, at least a top 3 right tackle in the NFL in his prime. Injury struck, whatever. But Bowles was kind of maligned at one point. And now here he is. He's 33 years old, playing the best football of his career. And I don't think that's even debatable. He is as good as he's ever been on the left side there for Denver.
You could make an argument that Bowles is definitely up there when it comes to protector of the year. If there's a finalist, top 3, I think Garrett Bowles has to be up there for how good this Broncos offensive line has been, which is sort of fascinating because, again, the offensive line is really good. The run game is terrible. And I think that's also going to be a very underrated part of this game because the Broncos can't run the ball and the Jaguars are really good defending the run. So is this just like an RPO game? Are you going to let Bo Nix's legs and the RPOs be the run game because of how good the Jaguars run defense is? Because that sort of silos you. That sort of makes you a little, we've seen the Chiefs try and live and die off of RPOs as their run game. I don't know how successful that's going to be in terms of a 60-minute game, but it could be fun for the scripted first 15.
That's I feel like the pass heavy game is going to be where you really see which Bo Nix you're going to get. If they really can stop the run, it's really going to be a Bo Nix game. That's what he might give you a few. That's when he might give you 3 or 4 at that point. We got to make a pick though, JP. I hate to do this to you. Where are you going?
I think because they're at home, I think the Broncos win. But I
Emotional
do
hedge.
This
Smart.
game, I am emotionally hedging, but I do think the Jaguars are going to keep this game close. With the way the offense is playing, I think they're going to keep it close. But there's just home game, December. I think the Broncos pull this one out, but I don't think this one should make anybody lose faith in the Jaguars.
All right, I'm going Broncos and the under as well. And that one, under is actually one of my locks. I think it's just going to be a low-scoring one. Let's get to Bucs at Panthers. Another very meaningful matchup, even if only for a little bit until the wildcard round comes. But Bucs, 3-point favorites on the road in Carolina. 45.5 points is the over-under here. Some playoff implications. The Bucs with a win, 94% chance of making the playoffs, 51% chance with a loss. Panthers with a win, 49% chance of making the playoffs, 5% with a loss. So basically, a Panthers win puts them back on even footing going forward and makes that Week 18 game the de facto championship game. A Bucs win means they can win next week and wrap up the division then.
Baker's been bad since like week 7. And
Dude,
not
I put
only
some
like
notes in there. It's so bad.
not only like since like week 7 has he been bad, he has been awful since week 7. And then you could really tell in the Atlanta game on Thursday. We say it all the time. Baker gets the zoomies. Like he is just so amped up to play football. And I think that he also sort of understood the offensive line has been up and down through injury. I think the receiver core has not been as good as it hoped to be. But Baker Mayfield has not been good at delivering the football. He's been inaccurate. I think part of that might be the injury still lingering. This is not the first time Baker Mayfield has played through a shoulder injury and been bad, which, like it happens. But he's just been generally inaccurate. Like on the 2-minute drive, everybody killed the Bucs for throwing on 2nd and 14. Baker Mayfield hits that pass to Emeka Egbuka, the game is over. Like that ball was behind him. It was inaccurate, incompletion. Like that, he hits that pass, the game is over. So I'm very curious which Baker Mayfield we get in this game, because the Panthers aren't exactly a fearsome defensive unit. They play a lot of soft zone. They don't really blitz. They rely on their front four to get pass rush. But if you're Idro Evero, do you turn up the aggression a little bit, knowing that this is a de facto like do or die game?
The Baker thing's interesting because he has been banged up. Obviously, go back to, I'm blanking on what game it was. We're right before the half.
The Rams
game where his shoulder's just hanging on his left arm. And it's kind of just, we haven't talked about since, right? But obviously, if something like that happens, you're probably pretty hurt. Like you're probably a little bit more than just banged up. But it was even before then. That wasn't any sort of tipping point in his bad play. He was bad before that. He was bad after that. He has been, by PFF's grading, the lowest graded quarterback in the NFL since week 7, since that Mike Evans injury went down. He was 7th before that game, 7th highest graded. We were talking about, is Baker MVP after like 6 games? And rightfully so. But I do think what's an interesting conversation to me is at the quarterback position, there are certain guys who are, I think the way I describe them in like a draft perspective is they're violent lower half throwers, that they generate a lot of power via, not as much from like their arm, but they throw violently with their lower half. And I was talking about this with someone a couple of weeks ago about like Brendan Sorsby and John Mateer, who I think are in the same category of violent lower half throwers, where they're really whipping their hips around. And the guy I was talking to said, like, I don't even know if guys like that can really even stop their motion. Like they couldn't even, if they tried, they're just doing so much with their lower half to generate power. And I think those guys, when you do get a little banged up, when you're so reliant on, and it's not smooth, I think their inaccuracies start to pile up. It's hard to be that sort of thrower and be consistently accurate once one link of the chain is broken, right? Once one part of it is a little off, I think it really exasperates the rest of the chain. And I think you're seeing that with him. Whereas on the flip side, Jordan Love had this shoulder injury to his opposite arm, a few weeks back. And I don't think it's hurt him at all in terms of his throwing ability, because he's not a violent lower half thrower. He's a very smooth, elongated to a degree. He's not slow and low with it, but it's not a violent whippy motion to get that ball moving. I think you've seen him be able to still play well with those injuries, whereas Baker has just kind of like completely ruined his season here.
Now, I also say, like, Baker has played awful, and in that game against Tampa, they put up 28 points, had a 0.15 EPA per play, and a 52% success rate. When Mike Evans comes back, that happens. You have everybody in the offense back healthy. So, yeah, Baker Mayfield has played bad. But also with Mike Evans back at 100%, this offense goes from being in the gutter to at least like an above average offense in the NFL. So if they put up 28 points in this one, can Bryce Young and the Panthers keep up, especially against like a weakened Bucs defense? That's how I would describe them. I describe them as a weakened defense.
Dude, I don't even know where to start talking about the Panthers. And I feel like every week there's a producer here at CBS, James Lamberts, who's a big Panthers fan. And every week he like makes me talk about the Panthers. And every week I'm just like, dude, I don't want to talk about the Panthers. I'm sorry. Because like one week it's Bryce Young's playing awesome. The next week, Bryce Young looks awful. And it's like just the past 5 weeks, 2 have been as high as 2 graded games of the season per PFF. 3 have been as low as 3 graded games of the season. It's just like you don't know what you're going to get. He's so up and down. And that's has to be just frustrating as a fan base, frustrating as a front office there in Carolina to see, because the highs are so good. But trying to pick this game, I'm like, dude, I have no clue. You know, they could score 7 points. The defense has been a sieve, but it might not matter with the way this up and down nature of the Panthers offense.
What I'm curious about in this game is if the Panthers can run the football. Because you can tell in every game that the Panthers lose that their run game hasn't exactly been uber efficient. And that forces a lot on Bryce Young. While like Bryce Young did play pretty well in the game in their loss against the Saints, 0.31 EPA per play, 38% success rate, 32 dropbacks. That's not where you want to live if you're the Panthers, because they only had 25 carries, negative 0.18 EPA per play, 36% success rate. You don't want to live in that area if you're the Panthers, and Bryce Young is throwing the ball 35, 40 times. But against the Bucs, the Bucs have an incredibly strong run defense as well. How are you going?
7 years. 7 years.
This is the one thing that Todd Bowles knows he's going to get. As long as Vita Vea is on the field, that run defense is going to be a house. Can the Panthers, and they run a lot of inside zone. They're a mid-zone duo. Like they live and die behind their guards in their run game. Can those guards create movement against this is strength on strength. This is Panthers run game against Bucs run defense. But because of the general weakness of the Bucs linebacker core, Levante David was hurt in practice yesterday, did not participate. They signed Anthony Walker Jr. off the practice squad. Servassier Dennis just started coming back to practice. Can they attack those linebackers? Which I also sort of I'm curious about, because that's not really where Bryce Young has really thrived. If you look at where he wins, it's outside the numbers. Those deep passes to Jalen Coker, Teteroa McMillan. Jalen Coker's played awesome since coming back, by the way. This is for me. Jalen Coker has been like one of my favorite receivers since he entered the draft, since last year's draft class. I was like, this guy is good. Like
the toe tap he had last week, I'm just like, I was trying to picture Xavier Legette on the exact same play, and I was just like, it would not have looked like that.
I think we got something like that in the first week of the season against the Jaguars, and he just completely whiffs.
No, yeah, we got a lot of those.
It's like the Jonathan Mingo play from last year where he catches the ball and turns his body out of bounds.
But Jonathan Mingo was still, I think, my most viewed tweet of all time. That thing went uber viral because it was the craziest looking play I've ever seen a receiver make.
I'm curious for the Panthers, can they generate anything over the middle of the field? Is this going to be, I don't know if this is a Jatavian Sanders game, but is this some Tommy Tremble stuff? Is this going to be Jalen Coker over the middle of the field? Because that's who Bryce Young trusts in that area. He trusts Teteroa McMillan over the middle of the field. Can they attack the weak points of this linebacker core, of this Bucs defense? Because if you're banging your head against the wall when it comes to the Bucs interior run defense, that's not a real strong point for the Panthers to win this game.
I just don't think the Panthers match up well. I think it sucks that we've had to wait 15 weeks before we get to see this matchup, like a matchup that's deciding a division. We haven't seen until week 16. I think that's just unconscionable by the NFL to schedule it this way. I truly think this is just ridiculous that it's going to be decided over 2 games over the last 3 weeks of the season. But I digress. I'm picking the Bucs. And I like the under here as well, just because I think that's kind of how the game script's going to go.
For the sake of my hope that Bucs Panthers gets week 18 Sunday Night Football, I am going with the Panthers.
Love it.
Because I think in this season of the NFL, I think that deserves to be the last thing that people see of the regular season. Like this season has just gone straight into the muck. We're leaving in the grime. We're leaving with NFC South football.
It will be, like I said before, the least watched Sunday Night Football in Week 18 history. But again, I think that's what we deserve after how this year went. Eagles Commanders. Eagles 6.5-point favorites. 44.5 points is the over-under here. And the Eagles almost like, it doesn't feel like they have anything to play for. Now they do. They absolutely still need to win that division. I don't think it's completely intact if they were to lose out and the Cowboys were to win out. But they just need to look good offensively. Obviously, kind of did last week. It was against the Raiders. This is another one where this is kind of like a string of get-right games where they better figure it out over this stretch or else you ain't figuring it out come playoffs.
Is this going to be the game Lane Johnson comes back? I have to check, because if Lane Johnson comes back, that's like, like we're back. The band is back together if Lane Johnson's back. I think
you're still sidelined.
Yeah, still sidelined. Jalen Carter also still sidelined. I think it could get weird because Cliff Kingsbury and Marcus Mariota have like this insane like mind meld apparently. But I do think the Eagles just look against this defense. You should be able to do whatever you want. You should be able to find some movement in the run game. You should be able to find some explosive passes. And I think that's the biggest thing that they've been able to do over the last few weeks. They have been able to find those explosives, again, downfield. It's been a lot of Devontae Smith, a lot of A.J. Brown. Those are the things that, like, the deep ball has not been working or it's been off and on this season. If they can get the deep ball working consistently, that makes their threat a whole lot bigger. So if they can just keep throwing the deep ball and keep attacking this Commanders defense, they should like ho-hum like a 24-27 victory out of this.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. This feels like they got the Commanders again. Stupid NFL. Week 16 and Week 18. They're lucky the Commanders weren't like a real team. This wasn't coming down the wire because, again, that would have been ridiculous. But Commanders are 27th in the EPA per rush against. They are, it's what we said last year. We were like, this was a bad run defense. They got bailed out by Jane Daniels being a superhuman at the end of a lot of games. What did they do to fix the run defense this year? Javon Kinlaw, that ain't doing it. Didn't do it. 27th in rushing EPA per play defensively. Eagles better run the football well in this game. They just better. Could charge that Cowboys. Cowboys 2.5-point favorites. 49.5 points is the over-under in this one.
I kind of think the Chargers win this game. And the reason I think the Chargers win this game is because Justin Herbert has played at such a high level, like over the last few weeks. The numbers aren't going to show it because, like, look at the offensive tackles that he is playing with, but he has been so good at creating second chances for this offense. If the play doesn't work the first time, the out of schedule, the off script plays, like those things he's been really good at. And I think Greg Roman has started to find a little bit of a groove. I think they've done a lot of jumbo sets with Trevor Penning as the 6th offensive lineman. They get really big and they can run the football out of it. I think that could be something they use to attack this Cowboys defense, especially because they don't have the advantage when just blocking 5-on-5. But if you're able to just hold up in pass pro, if you're just able to like play action the Cowboys to death, you should be able to, because this is, for all intents and purposes, one of the 5 worst back 7 units in the NFL. So if you just give them time, they should be able to create something.
Yeah, and I think against the Cowboys edge rush specifically, he'll have more time than he's used to. It's, with those tackles, you're never going to have all day. But this at least is a matchup where it's not, you have to completely scheme around it. They're going to kick our ass if we don't. And then on the flip side, the Chargers' ability to limit downfield passing is as good as it gets in the entire NFL. On throws just 10 yards down the football field, 10 plus yards. So like sticks and pass. They've allowed the fewest completions in the entire NFL. They're allowing 38.5% completion percentage. They have only 2 touchdowns allowed on such throws compared to 12 interceptions. This is the most difficult defense. It shouldn't be, right? Like on paper, no one would ever say this is the best defense in terms of being able to attack on the football field, but they are. They are so good at putting a cap on your offense. And if you can put a cap on CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, I just think you are more often than not going to slow them down enough that, well, you can put up points in this Cowboys defense.
I love this Chargers secondary. They communicate so well. When you talk about not allowing explosive passes and the way that they play defense, they play a lot of quarters. They are very Jesse Minter, Mike McDonald, same coaching tree, but they communicate so well on the back end. They pass off coverages. They pass off responsibilities. When you are playing so much match coverage, communication is critical in that aspect. They're able to pass off coverages one the other. They're able to close on windows really quickly, and there's never just one person on the ball. It's always 2 people. It's like a great, remember when Syracuse used to play the 2-3 zone and everybody hated playing the 2-3 zone. But every time the ball went into the paint or every time the ball is being passed around, there's at least 4 sets of hands. There's arms, there's defenders, there's length. And I think that's something that the Chargers have really started to embody really well in that secondary. And then you just have impact players. Cam Hart's playing really well. Tarheeb Still has been one of my rising stars this season. And I think Tony Jefferson, again, the unction this season, he has been really good for them and allowed Derwin James to play more of the nickel, dime backer stuff that they want him to do. So they just have so many different bodies they can throw at you, but they're all really smart and communicate with each other.
Yeah, and quarters it's an interesting coverage because, just on paper, put it on a whiteboard, you got 4 deep zones covered. And you might think, that's uniquely, that's, again, how you get to these stats they do. But it's also a defense that's very susceptible to big plays because of what you're mentioning, how it is. You are not always you can flood a zone or you can put guys in binds very easily when you see quarters coverage because you're passing off defenders 15 plus yards on the football field, right? You're having to go from, an outside, a double post route. You can get your safeties or your outside cornerback in a bind because the outside corner might be thinking he's passing to the inside safety and the safety thinks he's got the initial post coming from the slot. And there's just a lot of ways you can break quarters. That is if, again, they're not communicating, they're not passing off the back end. So it's a defense that, again, when you talk about some of the guys they have there in the back end, like Tony Jefferson, who's a journeyman veteran at this point, Tarheeb Still, who was a late day 3 pick, they are not man match sort of players. If you're asking those guys to go one-on-one, they wouldn't be able to do it. You'd just be like, that's not who they are. But in that defense, they are uniquely qualified because of how good they are and all the things you mentioned at putting caps on opposing wide receivers because they aren't getting their rules broken. They aren't messing up those plays where you have to pass off coverage. That makes it very difficult because, you can try to run those deep concepts till the cows come home. But if it's not open and if you're sticking for it to be open, well, then you're kind of in a bind because 3-4 seconds are ticking off the clock as a quarterback. And that's when, pass rush starts to get home.
And I think part of what allows him to play like that is up front, they have punched well above their weight in terms of defending the run. Deshaun Hand played one of the best games of his career against the Chiefs. You have Jamari Caldwell, who I'm a big fan of, was a day 2 pick. He was sort of the Poona Ford replacement. You have Tyir Tart still playing well above what he should be playing right now. And you just have these hammers on the edge in Bud Dupree, Khalil Mack, and Tuli Tuipulotu. You have all of these guys who are just hammers in the run game, but they play so much above what their actual, again, like you said, on paper, this isn't a super dynamic like
Yeah.
defense. Like you have some fun dynamic players like Deion Henley, Derwin James.
Yeah,
and
those are probably like two playmakers.
Yeah.
Like they don't have guys who go above and beyond a lot.
But they just have a whole bunch of really good like role players, like really good players. It's like I don't know. I don't remember the I can't believe I forget it. It was the year after Chris Bosh had to medically retire with the blood clots. It was that year of the Miami Heat where Goran Dragic was their all-star.
Okay.
And they had a whole bunch of guys playing above their weight class. And that's sort of what Eric Spoelstra gets from the Miami Heat, where like they can take a bunch of undrafted guys and turn them into stars. And that's sort of what this Chargers defense feels like. They've drafted and they've found value within the margins, and they've maximized it to their absolute most to create what this defense is right now, which is they're playing at a really high level and they can shut down anybody.
How high up is Jesse Minter on your coaching candidates this offseason?
I think he's really high. When you think about the youth and what teams are chasing in terms of how young they want their coaches, and again, just how much he's able to get out of a defense that, like we said, doesn't necessarily have all the first round talent. I think that puts him really high up. I do wonder how much of it has been like he's with the guys that he's always worked with. When it comes to his coaching tree, he's always worked with Jim Harbaugh. He's always worked with these position coaches. Like, I wonder how much of that is due to like, just coming with Jim Harbaugh from Michigan. But I do think if you're a team like, I would understand if the Giants did it, like getting the most out of a defense that, he's gotten the most out of a defense that doesn't have a lot of first round picks. You give him that defensive line. Yeah, I would love to see that.
That I actually love that. I think that would be great. Now, obviously, they then need an OC for Jackson Dart, but he would transform that Giants defense overnight. All right. I'm going first of all. I think we both in agreement there. Let's get Steelers at Lions. Lions 6.5 point favorites. 51.5 points is the over-under here. Lions need this one in a big way. 46% chance of making the playoffs if they win this game. 14% with a loss. On the Steelers side, 79% chance with a win, 52% with a loss.
It's going to suck because the Lions are still on the outside looking into the playoffs. But Dan Campbell has this offense firing. Like, this offense is playing at the highest level it's been this season. Their passing game is firing on all cylinders. And I think a large part of it is because, like, they've really leaned into the early down passing rate. Like they've thrown the ball a lot on early downs, and Jared Goff has played really well. He played in the loss to the Rams. He played one of the best football games I think I've ever seen him play. Like, just firing at all levels. And again, I just wonder, Derek Harmon will be back in this game. Mike Thomas said Derek Harmon's going to play, which is huge for their run defense. But now, if there is no TJ Watt, how are you going to get pass rush? How are you going to fluster Jared Goff? That's the only way you can beat this team is if you get Jared Goff pressure up the middle. Because I do think he's been pretty good at stepping up into the pocket and creating this season, which is like, I'll give him a lot of respect for Jared Goff. That Lions are 8-6. Jared Goff has been pretty good to really good for most of it. But I also think on the flip side, like, nobody on that team is big enough to slow down DK Metcalf. It's just if the Steelers want to throw the ball.
That is one of the things about this Lions secondary right now, whether Tamik Robertson, DJ Reed, they're tiny. Those are small guys. And DK has over the course of his career just feasted on those sort of corners. But back to the Dan Campbell point, because I'm in complete agreement. From weeks 1 to 9, they were 9th in EPA per play offensively, 0.088. Weeks 10 on, which I believe when he took over play calling duties, 3rd in EPA per play offensively, 0.13. Now, the success, the wins haven't been racked up over that time span, but, Packers game, they scored 24. Rams game, they score 34. It really hasn't necessarily been the offense's fault that those wins haven't happened. It really has been the defense that's just been decimated.
Yeah, and like you look at since Dan Campbell took over play calling, they scored 44, In the loss, they scored 9 against Philadelphia. That game was in the snow. They scored 44. They scored 34. They scored 24. They scored 44. They scored 34. Like, they're just putting up points in bunches. And, like, it's the effect of having the first place schedule that you've only you've put up all those points, yet you've lost 3 games. And part of it is because they can't stop anybody. They can't slow anybody down. So in this game, I think they're going to have to get the pass rush going. This has to be like the Aiden Hutchinson takeover game, because we've seen Aaron Rodgers shut down when there's pressure. Can Hutchinson, can Al-Qadim Muhammad, can Lee McNeil, can they fluster Aaron Rodgers enough? Or is this going to be like a 13 personnel, like Arthur Smith masterclass where I think if you go back and look at some of the numbers the Lions had against the Rams when they were in 13 personnel. The Rams in 13 personnel, the Lions allowed a 0.46 EPA per play, positive plus 0.46 EPA per play when the Rams were 13 personnel. That's bad. If you're the Lions defense, it's not great. So that sounds like Arthur Smith's music. Like, if he can 13 personnel his way to a 20-17 win, I think that's what the Steelers want. But I don't know if 20 is going to beat the Lions.
I still think the Steelers cover 6.5, though. Just a couple reasons. One, I think playing in the dome, Aaron Rodgers has been very good in domes over the course of his career. It's been great outside, but Aaron Rodgers in a dome, different cat. 2, Lions defense is just so utterly decimated right now. You're on your 4th string safety. 4th string corners are going to have to be playing out there. Amik Robertson may not be going in this one. You are down so bad. And I don't think that I don't think they'd stop anyone. I don't care how ugly the Steelers offense is. When you have what they're throwing out in that secondary, there's really just not a lot of recourse you got.
I do think the Lions win this game. I do think this is going to be pretty high scoring, because if the Lions are going to put up 30-plus points, the Steelers might. I think if they go to 13 personnel and they just have DK as that one receiver, you have to send help because of just how physically overwhelming he is. And that's sort of the way the Steelers want to win. They want to physically overwhelm you on offense. They have 3 tight ends, and they have Kenneth Gainwell's played really well. They want to run through you. So if the Lions can slow down if they can match physicality with the Steelers, I think they're going to win. But also I just think that offense is playing at such a high level.
All right. Let's take a quick break. After that, we got the rest of the slate. We got to keep it moving here. We're not even halfway through, almost an hour in. We'll roll through some of the ugly ones here coming up next.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
All right, Bills at Browns. Bills, 10.5-point favorites. 41.5 points is the over-under. I love those double-digit spreads with just low over-unders. Those games always crack me up because it's just going to be slop.
So Myles Garrett, 21.5 sacks this season, on the cusp of breaking the record. The distance between Myles Garrett and second place, Brian Burns, is the same as Brian Burns and 58th on the NFL's sack leaderboard. I don't think we're ever going to see a season like this again. Yeah. When it comes to just sheer dominance as a pass rusher, because again, the Browns aren't winning games. They're not leading in a lot of games. They're constantly facing all right, we got the lead, we can just run the ball. And Myles Garrett is still putting up insane numbers. This is truly one of the best seasons we're ever going to see.
I meant to say this on the Tuesday show. I don't think I did. If I did, stop me, because I hate repeating myself. But do you remember it was late in the Monday Night Football game? Rodgers was on the sideline and he slid. And it was a sack, but behind the line of scrimmage. Steelers play the Browns next week. Myles Garrett could have 22.5 sacks heading into that game, needing one more sack. I want Aaron Rodgers, Steelers up in that game, third quarter, fourth quarter. He hasn't been sacked yet. I want him to pull a run to Myles Garrett's side, slide into Myles Garrett for 23.5 sacks, completing the wheel that is how Michael Strahan
got his.
That Favre did for Michael Strahan, just completing the Favre career arc. I think that would be a cherry on top of his career.
That would be hilarious. I think Myles Garrett has said if they slide, it doesn't count. Like he is like morally like, no, I am going to bring this quarterback down for 23. He has said he wants 25, and given who the Browns have left on their schedule right now, they have the Bills, they have the Steelers, and the Bengals. He can still get to 25. Like he there's a reasonable shot he gets to 25 sacks. And if he gets 25 sacks in the season, that's one of those where I don't think it's ever getting touched again.
Yeah, it probably won't, honestly.
I also saw that there's a scenario where next week's Steelers game doesn't matter. So how funny would it be if Aaron Rodgers doesn't play and Myles Garrett gets it against Mason Rudolph all these years later after the swinging helmet fiasco?
Well, and also then breaks TJ Watt is tied with Michael Strahan with 22.5, and kind of puts that, because the debate between Steelers fans and every other fan base in the NFL, or like every other objective person over the past 5 years who's watched both him and Myles Garrett play, and the Steelers that insist that TJ Watt's the better player. And he's a damn good. I'm like not taking anything away from TJ Watt, but just like Myles Garrett has been a different animal for some time now and still is. And so for him to break that, especially when TJ Watt, some of the sacks they gave him, like you said, sliding doesn't count. If you go look back and watch some of TJ Watt's 22.5 sacks, there's one where it's him chasing a quarterback to the sideline. The quarterback steps out on his own at the line of scrimmage. And that was sack number like 20 for him. Then it was a full sack they gave him. It's just like, oh, brother. The Steelers scorekeeper at home was doing some work,
really
putting in overtime to get TJ Watt to 22.5. So it would finally put all of that to bed too, which would be just nice, because Steelers fans probably trail only Philly fans in terms of how much they'll go to war for or against their own guys.
It is going to be fun to see Myles Garrett go up against Deion Dawkins and Josh Allen in this game. Like I think that's probably going to be the most fun part.
It will be fun. I will be watching this game because I'm interested to see how Shedeur fares, because I think he should, at home, against Bills defense, it's not great. I think he should at least have some time. We'll see. All right, Raiders at Texans. Texans 14.5-point favorites, 37.5 points is the over-under. The Raiders right now, the highest chance of anyone of getting the number one overall pick at 32%.
I really did think about making one of my locks Texans minus 14.5. I almost did it, but that's a massive number. And look, this game is going to be ugly. And when you think about where the Raiders are weak and their inability to block up front, you don't want that going into a game against the Texans. And CJ Stroud has been playing quite good over the last few weeks.
Stroud 4 straight games with positive EPA per play. In his first 6 games, only 2 of them had positive EPA. So like their offense, at least passing game, has figured out a way to not be a disaster, shall we say? So I think they cover 14.5. I don't. There's not a lot of teams, truthfully, right now that I wouldn't pick to cover 14.5 against the Raiders. It's just they're going to have to back. If they cover, it will be a backdoor cover the way they did against the Broncos a couple weeks ago. That's the only. All right, Chiefs at Titans. Gardner Minshew against Cam Ward. Chiefs are still 3-point favorites in this one. 37.5 points is the over-under.
I also thought about Titans +3 in this scenario. I considered it because Cam Ward is playing really well. I think that's the biggest thing you want to see in this game. Cam Ward against Spags. And what does Spags do to make Cam Ward's life hell? So I do think that I think Cam Ward has been reckless to a good point in the last stretch of this season, where you can see some of the tackle breaking ability, you can see some of the play extension, and just his ability to recognize coverages at this point has been really good. It's just he's throwing to a lot of guys who will be wide receiver 5s. So I think the Chiefs probably win, but it would not surprise me if the Titans pulled off an upset.
I'm not even going to pick it. If you're betting this game, you have issues. Now I'm just, but You're a degen. All right, Bengals at Dolphins. Bengals minus 4.5. 47.5 points is the over-under in this one.
The Quinn Ewers debut.
Tua benched. All those Tua versus Herbert conversations for nothing.
Aged like milk. It was just awful, and we knew it in the moment too. Like, this is going to age very poorly. I think Tua's cap hit is something that, like, I think people are sort of underrating, like, how bad this contract is.
What do you do with it? If you're GM of the Miami Dolphins, what would you do with it? Because if you see there on the screen, there's $56 million next year, $53 million 2027, $65 in 2028. They can, though, just cut him next year, take that $56.4 million that would still be on their books, basically, for that season, but then that would free themselves from any further obligation through 2027, 2028.
I mean, to me,
we set the record for dead cap, though.
To me, I think he's just a really expensive backup, because cutting him, I mean, you could do what they did with Russell Wilson, what the Broncos did with Russell Wilson, and just cut him and eat $100 million in dead cap. But eating $100 million is gonna set your franchise back for a good amount of time. And they're not in any place right now to actually get a quarterback. So you're just sort of playing the game until 2027. But I mean, you're not going to trade him, because who's going to trade for him? Mm-hmm. To me, I think the only option is you either eat that record amount of dead cap, or he's just a really expensive backup. And I think, to me, just making him an expensive backup would just be fine.
So I was actually, to issue a correction here, I was a little wrong. You would have to post June 1st cut him, so it would not be just in 2026 if you cut him. It would push some of that money to 2027 as well. So there's no get out of jail free card here for the Dolphins after that, how this contract's gone. So yeah, at that point, he's your Alex Smith, he's your Deshaun Watson at this point, where it's just the contract's there. You almost have to act like you almost just put it aside. It's called, economics call it a sunk cost. It's there. You can't do anything about it, but we have to plan like it's not, you have to still try to win games. You have to still do what's in the best long-term interest of the franchise. You can't beat your head against the wall with Tua, knowing that, hey, when he hasn't had Tyreek Hill, he hasn't actually been a good quarterback in the NFL. I think I looked up the stats. His yards per attempt drops almost 1.5 yards in games without Tyreek Hill for the course of his career. So, yeah.
It's going to be a lot of soul searching for the Dolphins this season, especially because you also have Tyreek Hill on the roster, who's eating a lot of the cap. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough one. I think the Bengals should win. ? I do think Quinn Ewers will, at least, if Quinn Ewers looks good against the Bengals, I do think that's going to be very funny.
Oh yeah, that would be hilarious. I don't think it's going to happen, but I do think there's a world where the Bengals just don't stop the Dolphins running game. There's a lot of games this season that you can point to that the Bengals defense has just not been able to stop an opponent's running game, even though they knew it was coming. So I think there's a world where they keep it close, but yeah, the Bengals should win this one. All right, Jets at Saints. Saints 4.5 point favorites. 40.5 points is the over under. The Saints quietly, but they're playing their way out of potential top 5 selection here. They sit at number 7 in the draft. The Jets, they sit at number 5. So this is we don't really want to win bowl at this point.
Tank bowl, baby. We are so back. Chuck has played well. I'm not going to say like he's been like bona fide franchise quarterback, but his success rate, he has been able to keep the Saints offense on the field. While they haven't been able to generate many explosives, the fact that they're staying on the field and giving themselves more shots to score points is a good thing. I do think they just lack juice in the offense, and that'll probably be addressed later on in this offseason. But the fact that Chuck has played well in spite of everything else should mean like you give him the shot to be the starter in 2026. And if it doesn't work, you're back at quarterback again. If it does, congrats, you got a quarterback.
Yeah, I do think for the Saints, at least, your early returns from this rookie class have been great. And one thing, Mickey Loomis, Jeff Ireland, what they've done over the course, they have drafted well. They've honestly, it has been, at one point, everyone praised their cap management, but it's gotten to a point where that's what's actually holding them back right now, is their cap management. It's not that they can't draft good players. It's that, well, they've been trying to hold together this zombie core of the Drew Brees, Sean Payton era that every single year gets a little worse. It's gotten a little worse every single year, and that's not a great spot to be in.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to take also a big note from that game. Might be another Brady Cook game because neither Justin Fields nor Tyrod Taylor are practicing in full yet. So we'll see. All right. Take a quick break. After that, we have 5 more games to get to our locks recap, and we'll get out of here.
The crowd loves champions. Gladiator 2 is an epic spectacle. To amuse you is my only wish.
The glory is yours, not mine.
Very good. Gladiator 2, rated R, now streaming on Paramount+.
Did you watch Gladiator 2, JP?
I haven't yet. That's on my list. Now that I have Paramount Plus, I'm gonna go watch it.
Gladiator 2 is one of those movies. Sicario is another where I love the first one so much that I'm not going to watch the second one because I feel like it can only ruin the first one. Like it just, if it's not on par, I feel like I'm just going to be disappointed. So I haven't watched it. I don't know if I ever will. We'll see. But I love the first of those ones. All right, Vikings at Giants. Vikings 2.5-point favorites. 43.5 points is the over-under. Both of these teams out of contention. Obviously, Giants, all they're in contention for right now is the number 1 overall pick where they currently own that.
Good luck, Jackson Dart. That's the one note that I put in here. Like, this is like a rookie quarterback who sort of struggles with some of the post-snap zone coverage stuff against the king of that. Like, there truly is no like modern comparison for what Brian Flores does. There's no contemporary for what Brian Flores does defensively. So I am going to be really curious if this is just we're going to try and run them out of it type of game. But I do also think like the Jackson Dart stuff has been really fascinating to me because you could say Jackson Dart has played well, but you also have to consider that he's had a lot of injuries, a lot of concussions. And I think there was a clip of Dan Quinn talking about Jackson Dart in the latest episode of Hard Knocks, where he's like, yeah, treat him like a running back. Like he wants to play like a running back, treat him like a running back when he's near the sideline. And that's sort of the stuff that you got to change if you are the Giants' next head coach, because that's going to get your quarterback hurt a lot, like it has. And Dart can say all he wants to, like, teams officials are targeting him because of all the concussions and how many times he's been taken out before, which, yeah, like that's the point, like that's exactly why. Like, yeah, that's how concussions work. So I'm very curious on who gets brought in for the Giants to help take Jackson Dart to the next like evolution of what he can be as a quarterback. Yeah, this is actually one of my locks. I have the Vikings -2.5. I think they blow them out for all the reasons you mentioned. I don't think this Giants offense meshes well against a Brian Flores coach defense. And I think the Vikings, even if JJ doesn't go full 9, he might have a run game that goes for 200 yards in this one. So let's get Falcons at Cardinals. Falcons 2.5-point favorites on the road. 47.5 points is the over-under in this one. Did you see Kirk Cousins talking about pure progression reads? It's been I heard pure progression talked about ad nauseum though the past 2 weeks for some reason. It's been so cool too because they've asked all the quarterbacks and coordinators to talk about it. I'm curious. I want to see a defensive coordinator or a defensive coach talk about it from their perspective because we've gotten a lot of it from quarterbacks, from offensive coordinators. And Kirk Cousins talked about how much the passing game has changed from when he was entering the league, where it was you check single high, too high. If it's single high, you go to one side. If it's too high, you go to the other side, basically cut the field in half. But now, because of defenses changing and becoming more multiple post snap, you have to do pure progression reads, or you have to go 1, 2, 3. And he's talked about a lot with Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota, how that sort of rewired his brain when it came to the progression aspect of passing. So I thought it was a really cool, like, 2 minutes. If you go look for it, you'll be able to find it. It's a really cool illustration of what goes on in the progression of, no pun intended, the progression of passing schemes over the last few years. I do think this game's going to be like a sneaky league pass special, because we're going to get to a couple of like young rookie defenders who are playing really well.
Dude, Walter Nolan, so quietly, because he has been banged up. I think he's only played 5 games. Last week against Texans, he had 5 pressures in that game. He's been awesome as a pass rusher. He looks like everything and more you could have wanted for a guy who's fell to 16. A lot of reasons why. We don't have to get into why he fell to 16, but like, you always saw him on the tape, whether it was Ole Miss, whether it was Texas A&M, whether it was him coming out of high school where he was a 5-star recruit. You're like, this guy can move. And not a lot of 290-plus pounders you can say that about. Walter Nolan looks like, at least it looks like he'll be a cornerstone for this team. This defense looks like it added a couple cornerstones in this past year's draft. Usually when that happens, the team exceeds expectations. Obviously, I don't think anyone has failed to live up to expectations more maybe than the Arizona Cardinals this season. But there are some silver linings to this team. It's just going to come down to what the hell are we going to do at quarterback going forward.
And on the flip side, I think Jalen Walker has still played really well for the Falcons. I think James Pierce gets a lot of the attention because he's close to the rookie franchise sack record. I think he gets a lot of attention off of that, but I think a lot of his sacks are a little bit they are unblocked, and they are in the high effort sack category. But I do think Jalen Walker's been incredibly impactful, and the worry for him was that he was a 6'1" short arm edge defender, but it doesn't matter because he plays so hard and he's such a physical presence in the run game and passing game that, like we said with Walter Nolan, like, he is a franchise cornerstone. And you got at least a couple of those if you're the Falcons. You got Xavier Watts and Jalen Walker. I don't know if James Pierce will ever be a true 3-down guy, but you got 2 franchise cornerstones on defense.
Did you see Louis Riddick's tweet about James Pierce? Did you happen to see that?
No.
So preseason, he said, you give bold predictions, whatever. His bold prediction was James Pierce leads the league in sacks. And then, he had 2 sacks last Thursday night, and he quote tweeted his bold prediction and said, "Told ya." It's like, dude, he has 8.5 sacks this year. He is 15, 14 sacks behind Myles Garrett. And he said, "Told ya." And it's like, right there with you. Jalen Walker's been the better player.
We take our wins any way we can get them. Look, if you get it right, good on you. Keep going. I just think James Pierce is a specialist, and that's okay. Yeah. But also, I think Jalen Walker is the more impactful player. And I think that if he just put up a little bit better numbers, I think there'd be a lot more consideration for Defensive Rookie of the Year. But he's played really well for them.
Walker still very much. I mean, he's a dude. He's still only 21 too. He's young coming out. Doesn't turn 22 until the offseason. So this guy's gonna be a stud. All right. Some real games, real implications here. Patriots at Ravens. Ravens 2.5-point favorites. 47.5 points is the over/under. Ravens favored despite, Vegas still buying in, but they have the worst record against the spread of anyone in the NFL this season. They're 5-9. With a win, the Ravens have a 49% chance of making the playoffs. With a loss, that drops down to 22%.
I'm actually surprised the Ravens are favored in this game, because the Ravens still, they found their mojo against the Bengals. There's still a lot of questions. And I think that they're able to get some explosive passes off. I still wonder about the ceiling of the defense, especially against a team with a pulse like the Patriots.
Yeah, I think last week was a unique one-off case. It's not convincing me that, hey, this Ravens defense is back, it more convinced me that the Bengals wanted to pack in their season when it got a little chilly out, or a lot chilly out. It was pretty damn cold. But I also have questions about this Ravens offense. And yeah, Lamar looked better last week, but again, it was the Bengals defense. And I think the biggest thing has just been the complete reluctance of him to run. And some of that was like a large portion of the season he was hampered by the hamstring injury, wasn't practicing, whatever. But it's stark just how different that's been from over the course of his career. His previous career low in terms of rushing yards per game was 51 yards. This year he's at 30. His previous career low, or his average broken tackles per season, is 36. He's at 7 this year. You've seen him far more reluctant to, when he is out in the open field, try to do anything with it, try to maximize it. A lot of sliding, a lot of throwing the ball away. And he's taken 7 more sacks this year than he did in all of 2024 on 260 fewer dropbacks. So all that magic that we saw from him breaking the pocket, creating outside structure, it's just like gone. It's just not a part of the offense this year. And the offense is really stagnated because of it. And I do think it brings back an interesting conversation that we really haven't had for a while with Lamar, because, well, guy's been multiple time MVP, probably should have won it last year too. Is that, how is Lamar? I'm just curious what your thoughts on how Lamar is going to age, because, you know, Mike Vick, probably the last guy who was that dynamic as a runner. He didn't start a game after, he didn't start a game. He wasn't a starter preseason from age 32 on. His last year was 31 with Philadelphia Eagles. How do we think Lamar is going to age if that high-end rushing ability is taking a big step back in the 30s?
I think it won't be as dynamic if you just take out the designed rushes, but the scrambles to me are the biggest thing. Because of how poorly the Ravens pass protection has been, the entire nucleus of this Ravens offense is built around Lamar as a scrambler. And I think, given some of the advancements we've made, athletic training, modern science, I do think Lamar is going to age better than we thought he would. I just think this has been sort of just a year of some really odd, freak injuries. He's never had a hamstring injury like this. He has said he's never had a hamstring injury like this in his life. You have toe and knee injuries, just getting the wear and tear from having tried to play on a bad hamstring. So I think he's gonna age well, but I am curious on if this season for the Ravens, if this changes the outlook of how you have to build this team around Lamar Jackson.
So last year, he led the entire NFL in passing yards, breaking the pocket. Far and away, didn't throw a single pick, 8.7 yards per attempt. This year, he is it just has been night and day. What's the exact figure here? He has over 300 fewer passing yards at the same point in the season on breaking the pocket. Only 13 completions all season long where he's broken the pocket. It's just that is, I agree. It's not the pure what he can do as a runner, because even the threat still has this as one of the best rushing games in the NFL, rushing attacks. But it's those plays that you just see week in and week out that aren't there, that to me is the biggest difference for this Ravens team.
Yeah, you see a lot of their offense is built on making those explosive passes downfield. A lot of their routes are very long developing because Lamar always buys time.
Yes.
And if he can't buy time, if he's not that as a scrambler, you've seen it this year, the offense just looks off, and that's...
and also the receivers that's where they win. They are downfield route runners. Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman. You're not going to ask them to run a slant and make a contested catch. That's not what they do. So you kind of built the entire plane around that. And when that's not there, well, it's there's no chance of running quick game. You don't have quick game receivers.
Yeah. So they found themselves in a really tough situation that I think has to re-examine how you've built this team around Lamar to be more well-rounded.
Yep.
And to win, Lamar isn't a superhero. Can you guys still pick him up?
All that being said, we really haven't talked about the Patriots much. I think the Patriots win.
I do think the Patriots win. I didn't have it as one of my locks, but I am locking Patriots plus 2.5 because that feels a little crazy for the Patriots not to be favored in this game.
All right, 49ers, Colts. 49ers 6.5-point favorites. 46.5 points is the over-under. Colts with a win, 25% chance. With a loss, that drops down to 5% chance. Anthony Richardson cleared to be back, but doesn't look like he's going to be playing just this week. Cleared to be back, just like practicing. So maybe a little ramp-up period. Maybe we see him before season's end. But it looks like we get another Philip Rivers game.
I'm excited to see if the Colts offense expands the playbook for Unk. There was no play action, and it was all shotgun. Like that's partially because Philip Rivers is 44 years old and cannot move. But I also think it's because it's his first game back. So you're just going to give him a whole bunch of quick game, like short passes, because that's the stuff that's easy to remember. But I do wonder if they start to open it up a little bit. I think this 49ers defense is fast. They're young. They're aggressive. But I do think they can be attacked downfield because of some of that aggression. Are we going to start to see Philip Rivers sort of open it up a little bit? Are we going to start to see him like warming up the arm, test him downfield?
What does opening it up look like for a 44-year-old Philip Rivers, who in his prime was not noted for his arm strength? 5.2 average depth of target against Seattle. It's like, yeah, Seattle's defense is good. This is not going to be as good a defense. What does open it up like mid? We just start to see some mid-range jumpers? Because I think if you're the 49ers, you're just begging him, throw the deep ball. Give us a lollipop down the football field, because I don't think anything 20-plus yards. I mean, it's going to be Tua-esque at that point, at that range of the field.
For old man Phil, opening it up is a 12-yard dig. It's those high-lows where you have like Tyler Warren run the out route, just run the dig behind it. That's opening it up. That's like, yeah, Unk still got it. We're still firing, baby. And it's a 12-yard dig on first down. So I think that's sort of the stuff that I want to see continue to grow in this offense, because like, I'm not saying it could happen, but there's a possibility Philip Rivers is their quarterback in 2026 because Daniel Jones isn't back. So this isn't just about like finishing 2025 strong. It's about getting some stuff on tape you can be excited for next year.
Dude, I never even considered. But I mean, he looked accurate. Like if there's one thing that I don't want to say I didn't anticipate it, but like I thought there would be more rust than there was from a pure point A to point B perspective in his first game back. So encouraging. I think 6.5 is a little too much. I'll just say it. It's in Indy. I think the Colts cover. And I think they put up some more points this game than they did last week.
I don't think so. I'm sorry. I don't think this is going to end well. And I do think the Niners sort of run away with this one. The offense for the 49ers has played really well. And I think Brock Purdy has sort of turned down the Green Goblin in his mind, saying like, go throw passes into double coverage like the last time we saw him against the Panthers.
All right, let's get to Rams Seahawks, the main event here on Thursday Night Football. Seahawks 1.5-point favorites. 42.5 points is the over-under. Does not look like Devontae Adams will be playing in this one, unfortunately. Not enough time for him to come back, although this probably looks like the only game he'll miss with that hamstring injury. How do we see it going? This one, I really have not had a strong feeling one way or the other.
So I think something important for this game. Charles Cross is not playing. The Seahawks left tackle is not going to play in this game. Injured. That's huge against a Rams pass rush that wins with power and wins with physicality. I thought Charles Cross did a good job in the first game against the Rams pass rush. And as much as I want to say like Sam Darnold just doesn't have to throw 4 interceptions and they can win this game, Sam Darnold very quietly has not been good since that Rams game. He has not had a quality game. I think a lot of the tight window stuff, a lot of the downfield stuff has sort of waned. And I think he's starting to lose a little bit of trust in his pass pro up front because everything looks there's a lot of wasted movement with Sam Darnold right now. So I'm very curious on if he can make the game simple for himself, if Clint Kubiak can make the game simple for him like he did in the early parts of the season, but also Seahawks still can't run the ball very well. And without Charles Cross, that's also going to take another major hit. But then you look on the flip side, the Rams won't have Devontae Adams. You can just double Puka Nacua and say, beat us. Because even then, like even with Sam Darnold throwing 4 interceptions, that game was close. It took Jason Myers' missed field goal to beat the Seahawks the last time. So I think I'm really excited to see Sean McVay versus Mike McDonald Part 2, especially now that Nick Emmanwori has started to become a full-fledged dude in this defense. This is going to be really fun.
Put some numbers to Darnold. In his last 8 games, 7 picks, 7 fumbles. Has not protected the ball well. That should get exacerbated without your left tackle. Hard not to. But I do just think the Seahawks at home with that defense, I think they at least slow down the Rams. And especially, Devontae Adams is playing, I would say Rams, no doubt. But like you mentioned, you can just put 2 on Puka, and there's not really anyone else that strikes fear in you at all on this Rams wide receiving core. Tutu, Kanata Mumfield, Jordan Whittington. There's not, I expect them to come out in a lot of those 3 tight end sets. I expect this to be a run-heavy game on both sides of the football because of that, and also because rainy, windy, 40-degree temperatures at kickoff, 15-mile-per-hour winds. It's not going to favor a passing attack on either side in this one. So I just think it's a low-scoring tight one, and kind of a one bounce here or there. Who makes the pick? Who makes the sack to change it? I think that's how this one's going to end up.
I think the Seahawks win this one, and partially because these two teams are both very evenly matched, and I think it being at home, the Rams have had a lot going on this week. Their flight was delayed, a lot of stuff with Puka, Devontae Adams being out with injury. I think the Seahawks at home with that defense, I think they can turn this game into a rock fight. And without Devontae Adams, how much of the game gets affected for the Rams is going to be really interesting to see.
So the schedules for both these teams moving forward. After this, the Seahawks have the Panthers and the 49ers, both of those games on the road. After this, the Rams have the Falcons and the Cardinals. So the Rams, a little easier go of it, I'd say, after the fact in this one. So kind of a de facto 1-seed game. Winner of this has the inside track more or less to that 1 seed, and more likely than not will end up with it. So a lot riding on it. Can't wait to see it. Let's get to our locks, though, where JP's got Caleb Williams over 16.5 rushing yards against the Packers, obviously outrunning those DNs for the Packers. Jacoby Brissett going over 36.5 passing attempts. Nico Collins over 5.5 receptions. The Chargers plus 2.5, and the Bears plus 1.5. And then he added mid-show the lock to the Pats plus 2.5 on that one as well. I'm going Eagles and Commanders under 44.5. Sam Darnold under 223.5 passing yards with all that stuff going on Thursday night that we just discussed. Vikings minus 2.5 against the Giants. And then the Jags, Broncos under 46.5. Kyle's picking the Bears. Of course he is. He's picking the Patriots. He's picking Drake May over 1.5 passing touchdowns and A.J. Brown to go over 60.5 receiving yards. That was the locks, sponsored by Cash App. As you heard me say at the top of the show, new Cash App users can use our code to get free money. Use our code PUSHING. Send $5 to a friend, and within 14 days, you'll get $10 right in your account. Thank you, Cash App. And thank you to you guys for tuning in. As always, we'll be back Sunday night, breaking down all the Week 16 action. Only 2 more of these previews to go before come playoff time. Can't wait. Until then, keep pushing.